Hello everyone and welcome to another video. My MacBook Pro died on me the other day and I needed a new computer. I already have a good desktop, so I didn't need an expensive laptop, and I definitely wasn't gonna buy another MacBook Pro. Nevertheless, I wanted a somewhat powerful computer and I got this thin and light from Dell. Its most important feature is the new 8-core Ryzen 7 4700U. It only has 8 threads, unlike the 4800U with 16 threads. It has a base clock of 2 GHz and a boost clock of 4.1 GHz and a total cache of 12 MB. Before we talk more about the processor, let's have a quick look at the rest of the specs. It comes with 8 GB of 3200 MHz RAM in single channel, which is a bummer as Ryzen's love dual channel RAM. Fortunately, it's upgradable, and I did so by getting another stick of 8 GB 3200 MHz RAM. It is a 512 GB NVMe SSD, a 14-inch 1080p touchscreen, and Wi-Fi 6. It's a 2-in-1 and it supports pen input too. It comes with a 40 Wh battery, which is another bummer. It also has a backlit keyboard, a 720p webcam with a privacy shutter, 2 microphones, and a fingerprint scanner. It currently sells for $1150 Canadian or $850 US, which is pretty much the same price as 2-in-1s with 10th gen Intel i5s. Alternatively, you could get a laptop with an i7, and we'll compare them all later in this video. I'll also compare it with an i7-8850H, the processor that was on my MacBook, as well as a 6-core 6-thread Ryzen 5 4500U. As of now, the 4500U seems like the most popular option, and you can get one for as cheap as 700 Canadian dollars. In terms of ports, there's a barrel type charger port, 2 USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A ports, 1 USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type C port with power delivery and display output, 1 HDMI port, 1 headphone microphone combo jack, and an SD card reader. Compared to a MacBook Pro, it has a lot of ports. It weighs just about 1.5 kilograms. The build quality is fantastic. Coming from a MacBook Pro, I can easily say that it feels just as nice and premium. It's all metal and the hinges feel very sturdy. As it's a 2-in-1, you can't actually open the lid with one hand. There are shiny metal borders around the trackpad and the body. Also, this color looks great. There is very little flex on the keyboard and on the screen. It's a chiclet style keyboard with plenty of travel. As there is quite a lot of space in between keys, it's easy to type fast on it without making mistakes. There are 2 brightness levels for the keyboard backlight. There is one small issue with this keyboard though, and it's the page up and page down keys. They're right above the arrow keys. The space key would squeak when I pressed it, but it went away after a couple of days. Speaking of QA issues, let's talk about the stickers on this laptop. These stickers aren't aligned properly, and it's so annoying. My theory is that there is a huge demand for these computers right now, so they didn't spend much time checking the stickers. There's also a small imperfection here, but to be fair, I was offered a replacement or a small compensation. It supports Wi-Fi 6, but the reception isn't great. I conducted these tests at the same spot, but I was able to get up to 450 megabits download speeds when I'm at a different spot. The touchpad supports Windows Precision drivers. It's not as big as MacBook trackpads, but it's still a decent size and it works well. I'm used to clicking the trackpad instead of touching it, but as you can't click anywhere on the trackpad, touching works significantly better. The screen, at around 270 nits, isn't the brightest display ever, but it's serviceable. I used it at home, on the balcony, and outside at the park. At times, I felt like the display could be a notch brighter, but it was still okay. The colors, on the other hand, leave a lot to be desired. With 45% of the NTSC color gamut, you will want to get an external monitor if you're doing photo editing. As I mentioned earlier, it's a tight screen and it's as sensitive as a phone screen. It has narrow bezels on top and sides, but the bottom bezel is quite thick. It is a 720p camera and a dual microphone setup. The quality is better than my MacBook, but it still leaves a lot to be desired. The sound is very clear. There's also a built-in privacy cover. It has 2 bottom-firing speakers. They go reasonably loud and the sound quality isn't bad. Before we start benchmarking it, let's talk about the 2-in-1 function. It has 360-degree hinges, and when you fully rotate it, it disables the touchpad and the keyboard. It also has an auto-rotate function. When I made a video about the Surface Go, I complained about how bad the on-screen keyboard was. Thanks to a combination of more powerful components and a bunch of software updates, I can say that it's a much better experience. I've yet to find a Windows computer with haptic feedback, but when they make one, its on-screen keyboard will be perfect. I also got the Active Pen as I'm planning on selling my iPad Pro 2. It works in any mode, but it's most useful in tablet mode. It's very similar to the Surface Pen experience. It has 2 buttons on the side, and while they're mapped to the eraser and right click, they're programmable. Unlike the Apple Pencil, you actually need to apply some force on the screen to be able to draw, which is like writing on a piece of paper. As the screen has a thick bottom bezel, it's very easy to draw with the pen. There's an option to disable touch input when using the pen, just don't forget to turn it on. I use it every day to take notes and I haven't had any problems. I also use it in tent mode, but not in the regular way. This is a great way to watch movies or take full advantage of the touchscreen. The hinges are quite sturdy, so you can actually type using the on-screen keyboard in this mode. And with this, let's start benchmarking. In this comparison, our AMD processors are on 7 nanometers, while the Intel ones are on 14 nanometers. When I was looking for a new laptop, I thought the 4500U would be on par with the 10210U, while the 4700U would be on par with the 10510U. However, the results tell another story. The 4500U crushes the 10210U in both single and multi-core Cinebench tests, while the 4700U is on par with the 10710U despite it having 12 threads. With Cinebench out of the way, let's move to PCMark 10. Here, we see AMD shining again with the cheaper 4500U beating the 10710U. We also see that while the 4700U performs very well, it does so even better when you have 16GB of RAM in dual channel. I don't understand why Dell ships this with only one stick of RAM. We then converted a 1200MB 4K 30fps video to a 1080p MKV using the YouTube preset. The 4700U pulls ahead of the rest, even the 8850H. Handbrake can take advantage of multiple cores, and it shows. 10210U and 10510U perform significantly worse than the 4700U, mainly because they only have 4 cores. I also specifically mentioned the 8850H because it's not a thin and light processor. Despite being a 6-core, 12-thread 45W TDP processor, it falls behind the 4700U. I also wanted to edit videos on the go, so let's check Premiere. On my SSD, I have an 8-minute 4K video with a bunch of effects, so let's check the export performance. Here, we see that laptops with the i7-8850H and the 10710U are performing around 10% better than our Inspiron. This test also shows how big of a difference dual channel RAM makes. Let's check 3D Mark before we start gaming. In 3D Mark physics, we see that our Inspiron performs better than the 10210U and the 10510U while falling slightly behind the 10710U. Looking at graphics, we see a completely different story. Our Inspiron performs better than the NVIDIA MX250 and surpasses all our Intel laptops. This is partially because the 10th gen Intel processors still have UHD 620, a graphics chip from 2017. And with this, let's move to gaming. This isn't a gaming computer, but it doesn't mean that you can't do some light gaming every now and then. AMD is proud of the graphics units on their mobile chips, and I understand why. Our Inspiron performs significantly better than the Intel laptops on our bench, and the performance difference is anywhere between 60 to 120%. I have a desktop setup for gaming, but I have to admit that sometimes I just play GTA 5 or Euro Truck Simulator 2 in bed thanks to the integrated Radeon graphics. As I mentioned earlier, it has a rather small battery. There wasn't a battery life figure on the product page, so I didn't know what to expect. I don't have access to PC Mark 10 battery or Mobile Mark, so I had to come up with my own test. This test is similar to what I do every day. With all this, the battery lasted 4 hours and 57 minutes, which isn't great. I did a second test with a single Skype call and no video editing, and in this, the battery lasted 7 hours and 42 minutes. It's still not that impressive, but it's serviceable. The 4700U on this Inspiron idles around 41 degrees. I like the fan curve on this laptop, you can barely hear the fan when it's idling. Under an all-core load, the CPU boosts up to 3.4 GHz, but eventually settles at 2.9. It also reaches a toasty 83 degrees, and the area near the fan exhaust gets quite warm. Fortunately, it doesn't get that warm near the touchpad or the keyboard. The CPUs we're comparing all have TDPs of 15 watts, and they're mainly made for thin and light laptops. I would call them all ultrabooks, but turns out it's an Intel trademark name. Anyways, basically the 4500U is on par with the i5-10510U, and the 4700U is on par with the i7-10710U. The impressive part is the price difference. Let's check the prices of similar computers except the processors. I wanted to keep the brand same and get computers from the same segment, and I got these. All of them except the XPS are 2-in-1s, but the XPS is a more premium product. On the other hand, the AMD Inspirons are one segment higher than the Intel ones. Anyways, we can clearly see the price difference here. $30 between the 4500U and the 10210U might not be a huge deal, but the difference becomes obvious when comparing the 4700U and the 10510U. It also seems like the 10710U will be the premium ultrabook processor. Story time. I actually went to Best Buy to check out laptops, and I told the rep that I wanted a powerful thin and light laptop. He immediately showed me one i5 and one i7 laptop and told me that the i7 would be much faster than the i5. As you probably guessed, he was comparing the i5-10210U and the i7-10510U. When I told him that I've been looking at Ryzen laptops, he chuckled and immediately said, and I'm quoting, "Oh, you think Ryzen laptops are better?" And this is the problem AMD is facing right now. Not many people know about them. This is why I think laptops like this are very important, as some people just care about one thing: looks. And this laptop looks very good. On the other hand, not many people will upgrade the RAM, and 8GB is just not enough in 2020. I have Chrome open with 4 tabs alongside Word, and I'm already using 5.5GB of RAM. It's a similar story with the battery. Dell actually has a bigger battery that fits in this computer, but it's not even an upgrade option at the moment. They offer 16GB of RAM and a bigger battery on their Intel laptops, but not AMD. Overall, I honestly think that AMD is killing it, and this processor is no exception. This laptop from Dell is solid with no major flaws. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider liking this video, checking out my other videos, and subscribing to my channel. Take care.